Fortnite Chapter 3 as a whole was interesting. There were peak times and some other times, but nonetheless, that chapter is long gone. It might have ended a little rough, but there's one thing for certain. It started off amazing. Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 1 was something I can only describe as perfect, but what made it perfect? Well, that's exactly what this video is for. There are so many things about it that made it, to me, absolute peak. Now, the rest of the seasons of this chapter didn't quite meet the potential that they could have. At best, they were all pretty mediocre. They weren't all bad though, like Season 2 did introduce Zero Build and was actually pretty fun. It even had a good storyline and an actually good event, which is what I would consider the last real event in the game. I wouldn't even count the last events we had like Fraction and Big Bang, because realistically those were all just horrible. But anyways, all that stuff isn't even the main focus of the video. The real thing we're talking about is Chapter 3 Season 1 and what made it to be such a good time. There are various things I'm going to take a look back on and what the season had to offer, so let's go back in time and find out, was Chapter 3 Season 1 the perfect season? First of all, the lead up to the new chapter was what made it even more exciting. The two previous seasons, Chapter 2, Season 7 and 8, had a huge build up with the last reality storyline and the main plot of how Chapter 2 would come to an end. Honestly, to me, that time period in Fortnite with the whole aliens was my favourite personal prime form. It's a hot take that I already know a lot of people won't agree with because, well, yeah, I think you get it. But that aside, everything else was amazing to me and to a lot of other people. It's also the last time we had an actual decent summer event, but that's a topic I can talk about another time, so let's move on. The majority of people were expecting there to be a full 10 seasons of Chapter 2 because it's what we were used to in Chapter 1. This never happened, of course, as Epic Games had a little surprise up their sleeves and announced the Chapter 2 finale event. We were shocked with this information and the hype just grew from there. I have a feeling a lot more people were actually glad about this. A lot of the players seemed pretty tired of the Crane and Vomit Island. Yes! Anyways, the event was actually good.
Nice.
The foundation was the rock, surprise, and the island had a flip side which was Chapter 3. I really do miss these unique ideas Fortnite had, and I would love to see more of this stuff. We got dumped into the ocean as we slowly drifted closer to the new island, making it an even more hyped experience because slowly we would get to see the new map. Once the season finally arrived, we got a whole cinematic for the introduction to the new chapter, and this is where the fun was just beginning. We got a whole new island with tons of new biomes, the biggest being the snow as it was a season to be jolly and more like the desert, grasslands and a jungle type biome. This map was fresh with new POIs and also had callbacks to old ones like Greasy Grove, Shifty Shafts and Tilted Towers which got revealed after the snow melted away. Even Sunny Steps was there hiding away in the jungle. All of the new locations were genuinely interesting with places like a hidden sanctuary for the Seven near a giant oasis. We got more like the Daily Bugle from Spider-Man, Condo Canyon, Chonko Speedway and Rocky Reels within the desert biome, Coney Crossroads, Sleepy Sound and so much more. There honestly weren't any bad locations to land at, or at least the majority of them. Having half of the map covered in snow at the beginning was generally such a vibe, especially since we knew Tilted would be coming soon. Bringing back Tilted on any map is an instant cheat code for Epic Games to bring back any OG players really. The map was consistently updated during this time period, especially with the Imagine Order drilling, bringing in Covert Cavern, a new POI in the mountains very similar to the grotto as you entered underground. I love this POI because it made me nostalgic for the grotto, which is a peak location back in Chapter 2. Overall, this entire island in the beginning of Chapter 3 is what I'd say the perfect balance of biomes, POIs, and just everything. This map has become super memorable as an experience, and I do miss these times of playing on it. But the map isn't the only thing that made Chapter 3 Season 1 even better, which brings me to the next topic. The gameplay in this season was fun, that's one way I could just summarize it all. But I definitely need to get into more about what made it so good. There was a lot of diversity in the loot pool and more things like mobility and animals. This season was extremely packed, so I'll start with one of the most major things, sliding. Sliding was the first part of the updated movement in Fortnite, the second being sprinting next season. Getting more play movement mechanics was great because we hadn't seen any since swimming, which was introduced first in Chapter 2 Season 1, and we'd seen nothing after that. Sliding changed a lot of things in fights and was especially good for movements when sliding down hills. Moving on, we got a whole lot of new weapons that were really fun to use in fights, like the MK7 assault rifle. That thing beamed like crazy, especially with Foundation's Mythic, though it got nerfed later on, which was actually pretty good because it made the loot pool way more balanced. This was also the first time we had a first-person perspective on our guns with a red dot sight, so overall it's pretty interesting. We got more like the Striker Pump shotgun, which was really just a worse version of the original pump and slower, but you know, it worked. The auto shotgun was similar to the tag. From what I remember, it was actually pretty decent. We got the insane Stinger SMG that shredded, and more like the Hunterbolt sniper that fired 3 shots per clip. We also got more useful things like tents, which you could actually store loot in for next game. This is pretty fun to see, but they kind of removed it later on, which is weird. They also added med mist, which needs to come back, and Guzzle Juice, which was pretty forgettable. Later, we even got weather added to the game with chances of lightning or a tornado to spawn during your game, making it even more interesting. This season just had so much to offer in its loophole, it feels like they went all out on this. Chapter 3 Season 1 was also the first time they added victory crowns, making winning even more worth it so you could flex your win count. This feature would become iconic to players who never get off the game. One of, if not the best additions to the game, were the Spider-Man web shooters. The movement was so good with this and everyone loved it. You could swing from tree to tree with 80 total charges, never losing your momentum. There are things that I didn't even remember, like the vaults that required teammates to unlock them, and being able to break down some trees into logs, but something we all remember are the combos. These fellas were super interesting to interact with, as you could hop on top of them and use them for mobility. You could even trade clomberries for loot. There was nothing to hate about these guys. You couldn't even kill them if you wanted to, I think. From all that, I think you can tell there was a lot of new things. Let me know what you missed the most from this season. Now, the best thing this season had, in my opinion, was that there were so many consistent updates, which is something we don't see very often anymore. The total number of updates we had in Chapter 3 Season 1 were 51. What? Now, you might be confused. Fortnite has never had that many updates in any season. Well, to keep you on board, this season had 14 patch updates, which are the ones of server downtime and major addition. 14 patches is still so much more than it is today. Last season in Chapter 5 Season 2, we had 5 total patch updates. It's just lackluster. Now, how did Chapter 3 Season 1 have 51 total updates? Well, only 14 of them were actual patches, while the rest were small updates, hotfixes, and in-game changes. Each of these updates were very consistent, even day after day, with new items and gameplay, but most specifically map changes with the earthquakes caused from drilling by the imagined order. There are definitely different clarifications of what an update is, but in this case it's any form of change that happened during the season, and that number is 51. The main point is that this season delivered with content, and so much of it. We got Tilted, Pizza, Colombos, Winterfest, Angry Santa.
Nano? What the? He's coming back.
Collabs, earthquakes, map changes, unvaulted loot, just everything for a perfect season. If all of that didn't seem enough to prove it was perfect, the Battle Pass was actually goated as well. We finally got the Foundation as a skin which was highly anticipated after everything we learned about him in the story. We got a lot of interesting skins, none of them were bad at all if I'm being honest. And of course, we got the GOAT Spider-Man, one of the best Battle Pass collab skins without a doubt. So was Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 1 perfect? Well, that's something subjective to everyone. To me, this season was personally the best start to a chapter with the perfect updates and content, but still, it isn't my favourite season of all time. But it's definitely up there, and to me, it still reigns as the top spot for a perfect season. Still not my favourite though. You know, maybe it's because after we finally left Chapter 2, we received some feeling of refreshment on the Chapter 3 island. Chapter 2 dragged on for 780 days with only 8 seasons. That's longer than Chapter 1 at 747 days with 10 seasons. Even though Chapter 3 sadly lasted 4 seasons, the entirety of it wasn't so bad. Season 1 is the best by far, with the rest falling a little flatter in my opinion. I think Chapter 3 Season 1 felt rewarding to have with all its content, which is why I think it was perfect. A lot of other people seem to agree that Chapter 3 Season 1 is Fortnite's perfect season. It was well received and there was basically nothing to hate about it. I mean, what can you hate about it? We don't nearly get this much anymore, which is exactly why I miss this kind of stuff. Not trying to hate on any current seasons, but come on now. Well, that basically concludes all of my thoughts on Chapter 3. There's a lot more I could say about it, but those are the basics of why I think it's perfect. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Was Chapter 3 Season 1 your perfect Season 2, or maybe it's another? Anyways, is Chapter 3 Season 1 the perfect Yes it is.